Ali Mae is a young woman living in Kansas, where endless fields stretch out and silence envelops every corner. She owns a small diner located in a remote town, where the dim neon lights are the only bright spot in the cold night. Her diner, with its old wooden tables and the fragrant smell of food, serves as a refuge for locals and travelers who happen to pass by. But this place is not a bustling destination. It resembles a forgotten shadow, lying quietly in a land where time seems to stand still. Ali has lived her whole life in this town. She inherited the diner from her parents and spends most of her time serving familiar customers, people she has known since childhood. But life here, though peaceful, carries an undeniable monotony. There are no big events, no sudden changes. Everything is slow, steady, and sometimes Ali feels like she's trapped in an endless loop of identical days. To break this monotony, Ali came up with a little game. Whenever a stranger enters the diner, she brings them food, sits down, and asks if they have any interesting stories to tell. These aren't ordinary life stories, but strange tales, hidden secrets, or even chilling experiences they have never dared to share with anyone. In return, she offers them a discount on their meal, a small reward, but enough to make them consider opening up. This idea stemmed from Ali's curiosity about the mysterious. As a child, she was fascinated by stories of strange creatures, supernatural entities known as cryptids. She imagined herself as a mysterious character, a woman in a remote diner where people come to share stories they wouldn't tell anyone else. But when she started this game, she didn't expect it would lead her to darker secrets than anything she had ever imagined. The atmosphere in the diner always carries a sense of cold and isolation, especially when night falls. The light from the old bulbs is only enough to dispel a small part of the darkness, and the wind blowing through the cracks creates eerie sounds. Ali didn't know that among the stories her customers told, there were things that were not just products of imagination. Sometimes, those stories carried a terrifying truth, a sign of things that humans cannot fully understand, things waiting in the darkness, just outside her diner's door. Ali Mae is not someone who enjoys ordinary things. Having lived her entire life in a small town where each day is like the one before, she always yearned for something different, something that would make life more interesting. Her curiosity wasn't for mundane stories of daily life, but for mysteries, things beyond human understanding. So when she stumbled upon the concept of mythical creatures, or cryptids, she was immediately captivated. Stories of supernatural entities lurking in the shadows, creatures whispered about, sparked her imagination. The idea for the storytelling game came to her on a cold night while she sat alone in the diner, looking out at the empty road. Ali thought about making herself part of those mystical stories. She imagined herself as a strange character, a mysterious woman in a small diner in the middle of nowhere, where travelers passing by would share their darkest secrets with her. And then they would leave, feeling relieved for having unburdened themselves, while she would become a legend, part of the stories they would tell others. Ali started this game with a mix of excitement and nervousness. She didn't know if customers would agree to participate, but she decided to try. Initially, people's reactions were quite reserved. The guests who entered the diner usually just wanted a quick meal, not to be bothered by strange questions. But Ali had her own way of making them open up. She gently introduced the game, explaining that she didn't care what they shared, a sad story, a frightening secret, or even something they had never dared to say. She just wanted to listen, and in return they would receive a small discount on their meal. Gradually, the guests began to participate. Some shared tales of secret affairs, past mistakes, or painful memories. But there was one type of story that Ali noticed. Appeared more frequently stories of horror, about entities they couldn't explain. Their eyes, as they recounted, often shone with fear, as if they were reliving the moment. These stories weren't just words, but pieces of a terrifying reality, a world Ali never thought she would touch. And so, the storytelling game became more than just a way to break the monotony. It became a gateway for Ali into a world full of mysteries, where ordinary rules no longer applied, and dangerous supernatural entities lurked, waiting to be told. That night, Ali Mae's diner was enveloped in a strange silence. Outside, cold winds blew through the cracks, carrying eerie whistles as if something was lurking in the darkness. Ali was cleaning the counter, preparing to close, when the door suddenly swung open. A young woman stepped in, looking as if she had just escaped a nightmare. Her coat was smeared with mud, her hair disheveled, and her eyes shone with an unmistakable panic. She moved toward the counter, each step heavy as if her last bit of strength was dwindling. Ali immediately sensed something unusual. Unlike typical customers, this girl carried a chilling atmosphere, as if she had just stepped out of another world. Ali invited her to sit down and brought her a cup of hot coffee. The girl, trembling, took it, her frail hands shaking as she tried to breathe deeply to regain composure. After a moment of silence, she looked up at Ali with fearful eyes and said, "I need to tell someone. I can't keep it in my head anymore." Ali sat down opposite her, a sense of anticipation rising within. The girl began to speak, her voice gradually lowering, as if afraid something might hear. Her story started with a hiking trip in the Appalachian Mountains, where she and a group of friends decided to camp overnight. At first, everything was normal, the sound of insects, the flickering fire, and cheerful stories together. But as night fell, she began to feel something was wrong. She recounted being awakened by a strange, sound gentle, yet haunting footsteps, as if someone was stalking around the campsite. When she looked outside, she saw a tall figure standing among the trees. The creature was about 7 feet tall, its skin pale like a corpse, and its red eyes glowing in the dark. But what terrified her most was its smile, twisted, unnaturally wide grin, as if mocking her weakness. The creature wore camouflage, but unlike any attire she had ever seen, it stood still, staring at her, and then slowly vanished into the darkness, as if blending into the night. The girl said that since that night, she felt its presence everywhere in her dreams, in the dark corners of her room, and even as she walked along deserted roads. It never attacked, just stood there, watching her with those glowing red eyes and that terrifying smile. Ali sat frozen, a cold feeling enveloping her. The girl's story was not just a simple recounting. It carried a frightening truth. Something Ali felt was present right outside the diner's door, waiting to step in. And in that moment, Ali realized that her storytelling game had opened a door she could not close. The girl sat there, her eyes sunken, and her voice trembling as if each word she uttered dragged out a deep-seated fear within her. Ali listened intently, a chill crawling down her spine as the story grew more terrifying. The girl recounted that since the fateful night in the Appalachian Mountains, her life had not been the same. At first, everything was just nightmares. Every night, she found herself trapped in a dark forest, where that creature stood silently among the trees, its red eyes staring directly at her. In the dreams, it never moved, but its presence suffocated her, causing her to wake up in the middle of the night in a panic, drenched in cold sweat. But then, the nightmares began to seep into the real world. She felt watched, no matter where she went in the supermarket, on the bus, even in her own apartment. The girl said strange symptoms started to appear. She frequently vomited for no apparent reason, her body exhausted as if drained of energy. Every time she looked in the mirror, she felt something was wrong. Her eyes, once bright, now seemed dull and empty. But the scariest part was that the creature was no longer just a nightmare. It began appearing in reality. She vividly recalled the first time she saw it outside her bedroom window. It was a rainy night, the wind howling through the cracks. She was trying to sleep when she noticed a faint light shining through the curtains. Pulling them aside, she saw it standing there, right outside the window, tall and silent like a haunting shadow. Its red eyes stared at her, and that twisted smile remained, as if it was savoring her fear. She screamed and turned on the lights, but when the room was flooded with light, the creature vanished, leaving behind a cold and eerie emptiness. She tried seeking help, The police came to check her apartment, but found no signs of an intruder. They only looked at her with skeptical eyes, as if she was making everything up. The doctors couldn't explain her symptoms either. They just prescribed sedatives and advised her to rest. But how could she rest, knowing that thing was still out there, waiting for her in the darkness? The girl bowed her head, her voice breaking into sobs. "It never leaves," she said, her hands covering her face. "I don't know how much longer I can endure this. I just want to escape from it, but I don't know how." Ali sat there, a sense of helplessness enveloping her. This story wasn't just a recounting, it was a warning, evidence that there are things beyond human understanding, and they are more dangerous than anything we can imagine. The girl's story became even more frightening when she recounted her direct encounter with the creature. It was a dark night, as she was on her way back to her apartment after school. The road was deserted, with only the dim streetlights and the sound of wind rustling through the trees. She walked quickly, trying to shake off the feeling that she was being watched. But then, she heard footsteps. At first, they were gentle, like a breeze passing by, but they grew clearer, heavy and haunting. The girl turned around, and the creature stood just a few steps away, tall, with pale skin, its red eyes glowing in the darkness. Its twisted smile was still there, as if mocking her fear. She screamed and ran for her life, but the creature did not slow down. Its footsteps echoed behind her, steady like the heartbeat of someone in panic. She ran through alleys, trying to find a place to hide. But as she turned into a hidden corner, the creature was right behind her. Before she could react, it reached out and touched her shoulder. A burning sensation spread throughout her body, as if an invisible fire was scorching her flesh. She fell, seeing it standing over her, its red eyes brighter than ever. But then, like a phantom, it disappeared, leaving her lying there, in pain and panic. When she woke up, she realized there was a burn scar in the shape of a hand on her shoulder. The scar was unlike anything she had ever seen, darkened, as if marked by something not of this world. From that moment, she knew the creature wasn't just a haunting presence. It could touch her, hurt her, and perhaps do much more. The girl said that after that encounter, she couldn't continue her normal life. She decided to drop out of school, give up everything, and start a wandering life. She didn't dare stay in one place too long, because whenever she felt safe, the creature would appear again, standing silently in the shadows, watching her with those red eyes and terrifying smile. She moved from city to city, living in shabby rooms, always tense and afraid. The girl bowed her head, her voice lowered. "I don't know how far I can run. It always finds me, no matter where I hide. I don't know how much longer I can endure this." Ali sat silently, a chill enveloping her. The girl's story was not just a recounting. It was a warning, evidence that there are things beyond human understanding, and they are more dangerous than anything we can imagine. Ali sat motionless, her eyes fixed on the girl in front of her. The girl's story was like a cold wind blowing through, making the atmosphere in the small room heavy and eerie. The girl trembled, her hands hugging her shoulders, where the dark hand-shaped scar remained, a vivid testament to the existence of that terrifying supernatural creature. Ali felt a sense of helplessness filling her heart, but she knew she couldn't abandon the girl. "You need to rest," Ali said, trying to keep her voice calm even though her heart was pounding in her chest. She stood up, took a light blanket, and gently draped it over the girl's shoulders. "You've endured too much already. Tonight, let me help you." The girl looked at Ali with skeptical eyes, as if she didn't believe anyone could help her escape this nightmare. But Ali's gentle gaze, the patience and sincerity in every word, seemed to soothe a part of her fear. Ali handed her a warm glass of water and some simple food, a slice of bread and a few apples. "You need to regain your strength," Ali gently urged. "We'll find a way to deal with this, but first, you need to eat a little." The girl nibbled on the bread, her hands still trembling. Ali sat beside her, saying nothing more, just quietly observing. Inside her was a jumble of emotions, worry, fear, and a faint hope that this girl would overcome. But how could she be sure? That creature, with its glowing red eyes and twisted smile, was beyond human understanding. It followed no rules, left no traces, and seemed unstoppable. After the girl finished eating, Ali helped her stand up. "I know a nearby inn," she said. "It will be safer there. You need a place to rest, to recover." She led the girl out of the small room, stepping into the cold night. The wind blew through, carrying a biting chill, but Ali held the girl's hand tightly, as if that could protect her from everything lurking. The inn was at the end of the street, its yellow lights flickering through the window. Ali rented a small room, ensuring the windows were securely locked with no gaps. "Rest here," she said, her voice full of concern. "If anything happens, call me immediately." Ali left, but her heart was uneasy. She couldn't stop thinking about that creature, how it had haunted the girl and left indelible marks. Was the girl truly safe here? Were her efforts enough to help the girl survive? Ali didn't know the answer, but she obeyed a faint hope, yet the only light in this cold and isolated darkness. David, the elderly man with deep-set eyes and a face etched with the wrinkles of time, sat quietly by the oil lamp in the small room of the lighthouse. The air around him carried a chilling stillness, broken only by the sound of wind whistling through the cracks and waves crashing against the rocks below. His story began, gentle yet haunting, as if his words carried the breath of the sea and darkness. "Being a lighthouse keeper is not just a job," David said, his voice low, as if sharing a secret he had kept for years. "It's a commitment, an isolation, and sometimes it's a battle against things that humans cannot understand." Ali and the girl sat across from him, silent in the face of David's serious words. He looked out the window, where the storm raged outside, waves towering as if they wanted to swallow the lighthouse whole. In big storms, when the wind and waves join forces to destroy everything, there's one thing I always have to remember. Never open the door when you hear the call. Ali frowned, feeling tension begin to spread. "The call?" she asked, her voice slightly trembling. David nodded, his eyes darkening. "Yes, the call. I don't know what it is, but it always appears on stormy nights. At first, it's just vague, sounds like whispers from afar. But then it becomes clearer. Sometimes it's the voices of people I know, people I love." He paused, as if trying to control some emotion. "The first time I heard the call, I almost broke the rule. It was my daughter's voice. It echoed outside the door, amidst the storm. It called me, begged me to open the door. I almost believed it was really her. The voice was so real, so familiar. I placed my hand on the doorknob, but then I remembered the warning of the lighthouse keeper before me. Never open the door. No matter who, no matter what voice, don't open the door." David stopped, his eyes fixed on Ali and the girl. I pulled my hand back and the call disappeared, but I knew if I opened the door, I would never live to tell this story. Those things out there, they are not human. They know how to disguise, know how to make us trust. And once we break the rule, they will get in. The air in the room became suffocating, as if David's words had summoned an invisible darkness, quietly enveloping them. Ali felt a chill run down her spine, while the girl hugged her shoulders tightly, as if trying to protect herself from the things David had mentioned. "So what are they?" Ali asked, her voice small but full of curiosity and fear. David shook his head, his eyes looking into the distance, where the lighthouse's light continued to spin in the dark. "I don't know, and I don't want to know. But I know one thing. They are powerful, dangerous, and always looking for a way to step through the door. Never let them in. No matter what voice, no matter who, never open the door." The storm that night was stronger than any David had ever witnessed. The wind howled like the screams of thousands of imprisoned souls. The sea waves surged violently, crashing against the rocks, as if wanting to crush everything. The light from the lighthouse spun in the darkness, but it was just a small dot amidst the endless chaos. David sat in the small room, feeling each tremor of the lighthouse, his eyes heavy with memories and fears deeply embedded in his mind. That night, a knock on the door echoed. David startled, his heart pounding. He stood up, walked to the door, and a man's voice sounded from outside, weak but full of desperation. "Please open the door. I'm lost. I need help." David opened the door, and the young man, soaked to the skin, fell inside. It was Charlie, a seafarer who had been in a boat accident and was washed ashore here. Charlie trembled, his eyes bewildered as if he had just escaped a horrifying nightmare. David helped him settle, handed him a towel to dry off and some food. But even safe within the lighthouse, fear lingered in Charlie's eyes. "I heard the call," Charlie said, his voice choked. "It was my fiance's voice. She's out there. I have to go out and find her." David felt a chill run down his spine. He placed a hand on Charlie's shoulder, his eyes serious. "Listen to me, you must not go out. That's not her. Don't trust what you hear in the storm. They're not human." Charlie looked at David, his eyes full of doubt and anguish. "No, you don't understand. I know her voice. She's calling me. I can't leave her out there." David tried to stop him, but Charlie, driven by desperation and blind love, rushed out before he could be held back. The lighthouse doors swung open, and cold wind and sea spray poured in, carrying the screams of the storm. David ran after him, but Charlie had disappeared into the night, leaving only his faint silhouette amid the raging waves. David stood motionless, his eyes fixed on where Charlie had vanished. The call echoed, clearer than ever. It was the voice of a woman, sweet and familiar, but something was wrong, a cold, distorted tone, as if created by something not of this world. David saw Charlie not far away, standing on the edge of the cliff, his eyes vacant, as if hypnotized by that voice. "Charlie, come back!" David shouted, but it was too late. A shadow from the storm lunged forward, quick as lightning. It had no clear shape, just something vague, dark, but full of power. It enveloped Charlie, pulling him into the storm. Charlie's scream echoed, then vanished, blending into the sound of wind and sea waves. David stood there, his hands trembling, overwhelmed by helplessness and horror. The storm continued to howl, as if it had just swallowed another soul. Charlie was gone, leaving no trace, only the eerie call still echoing in the night, a reminder of the existence of dangerous and mysterious supernatural entities. Andrea sat across from David, the light from the oil lamp casting sharp lines on her pale face. She wasn't someone easily swayed by horror stories or the supernatural, but this time her eyes were full of haunting images. There was an undeniable fear in every word she spoke, as if she was carrying a darkness from the place she had just escaped. "That village," Andrea began, her voice slightly trembling. "It lies deep in a valley, surrounded by forests and mountains. When I arrived, it was completely isolated. No one was allowed in or out. People said a strange disease had appeared, unlike anything I'd ever studied." David listened quietly, the air in the room growing colder, as if Andrea's story was drawing a dark breath from the past. Andrea continued, her eyes fixed on the lamp, as if that faint light was the only thing keeping her from madness. "At first I thought it was a new virus or bacteria. But then I realized it wasn't just an ordinary disease. The infected, they didn't die, but their bodies began to decompose, chunks of flesh falling off, blood oozing from cracks in their skin. They still moved, still talked, but they no longer resembled humans. The stench of decay enveloped the village, and their moans echoed at night, like whispers from hell." Andrea paused, taking a deep breath, as if trying to calm herself. "I wore protective gear, thinking I would be safe, but I was wrong. One of them, a woman, perhaps once a mother of three, rushed at me. Her eyes were empty, but her mouth whispered nonsense. I couldn't dodge in time, and her nails tore through my protective suit. I felt my skin burning, and I knew I was infected." David felt a chill run down his spine. He said nothing, just looked at Andrea with worried eyes. Andrea continued, her voice now almost a whisper. I ran from the village, without thinking. I knew if I stayed, I would become one of them. But even after escaping, I still felt like something was clinging to me. The burning sensation on my skin didn't go away, and I started hearing whispers like the moans from the village. I don't know if I've truly escaped that disease, or if I'm just carrying it with me. Andrea stopped, her eyes meeting David's, as if seeking answers from him. That disease is unlike anything I've ever seen. It's not natural. I believe it's something from a place humans shouldn't touch. David said nothing, only feeling the coldness envelop the room. Andrea's story was not only a haunting tale of a strange epidemic, but also a warning about dangerous supernatural entities, things beyond human understanding, always lurking in the shadows, waiting to spread. That night, the sky was pitch black with no moon or stars, only thick clouds covering everything like a mourning shroud. The air was so cold that every breath felt like it froze in the throat. Allie sat in the corner of the small diner, the dim light from the oil lamp casting her shadow long and distorted on the floor. She never expected to see Nadia again, the girl, once haunted by something Allie had always tried to bury in her memories. Nadia appeared, thin and gaunt, but her eyes were bright, full of tension and determination. It's coming back, Nadia said, her voice hoarse, as if each word carried an indescribable pain. It's targeting you, Allie. We have to end this, right now. Allie looked at Nadia, feeling a chill run down her spine. She knew Nadia wasn't lying. The creature they once thought had disappeared was now returning, stronger, more dangerous, and this time it didn't just want to hunt, it wanted to destroy. They made a plan. An abandoned cabin deep in the forest was chosen as the place for the confrontation. It was an old, decaying place, with peeling wooden walls and a roof full of holes. But its isolation and gloom made it the perfect battleground. Nadia brought a sharp knife, while Allie held her father's old hunting rifle, the only weapon she could find in such a short time. As night fell, they waited. The air in the cabin was heavy, as if every sound was being sucked away. Allie felt each heartbeat pounding in her chest, her hand gripping the gun so tightly her knuckles turned white. Nadia stood beside her, eyes fixed on the old wooden door, where they knew the creature would appear. And then, it came. The door burst open not by the wind, but by an invisible force full of power. A shadow slithered in, without a clear shape, but vague and terrifying. It didn't walk or crawl, it seemed to float in the air, like an entity not belonging to this world. The weak light from the oil lamp barely revealed its glowing red eyes, filled with hatred and a thirst for destruction. Allie didn't hesitate. She raised the gun and pulled the trigger. The gunshot echoed loudly, but the creature only paused for a moment before charging forward. Nadia screamed, rushing in with the knife in hand. She stabbed it, but each thrust felt like cutting through air, as if the creature's body wasn't real. It retaliated, throwing Nadia against the wall, leaving her collapsed. Desperate, Allie fired another shot, this time aiming straight for the red eyes. The creature screamed, a piercing sound that tore through the space, shaking everything. Despite her pain, Nadia got up, and with all her remaining strength, she plunged the knife deep into the center of the shadow. A blinding light erupted, and the creature vanished, leaving the cabin in deadly silence. Allie and Nadia sat on the floor, gasping for breath. They didn't know if the creature was truly destroyed or just temporarily gone. But in that moment, they knew they had won out, at least this time. Outside, the wind howled through the gaps in the cabin, carrying a cold, eerie feeling, like a reminder that the darkness was always lurking, waiting to return. The flames erupted fiercely, consuming everything in the old cabin. Rotten wooden pieces burned brightly, emitting crackling sounds mixed with the wind howling through the dark forest. Ali and Nadia stood a few meters away, their eyes fixed on the blaze, where the body of the supernatural creature lay motionless amidst the sea of fire. The air around became suffocating, the smell of burning wood and something unnatural foul, haunting odor spread through the night. Ali panted, clutching the wound on her shoulder. Blood oozed from the creature's scratch, soaking through her shirt, but she didn't care. Her gaze was fixed on the flames, as if waiting for something to happen. She didn't believe it was over, not when that creature was so strong and dangerous. Nadia stood beside her, pale-faced, lips tightly pressed, trying to hide the pain from the wounds on her body. But deep in her eyes, there was a glimmer of faint hope after years of being haunted by darkness. "We have to be sure," Nadia said, her voice hoarse but full of determination. "We can't let it revive. This fire must burn everything." Ali nodded. She knew Nadia was right. That creature was unlike anything they had ever faced. It wasn't just a supernatural entity. It was the embodiment of destruction, something beyond human understanding. If not completely destroyed, it would return stronger. And this time, no one could stop it. The fire burned all night, its light illuminating a corner of the forest, like a beacon in a dark ocean. Ali and Nadia sat together, silent, only listening to the sound of the fire and the wind through the trees. They said nothing, but both knew this was a battle they never wanted to repeat. When the fire died out, only ashes and charred debris remained. The cabin was now just a pile of ruins, and the creature's body had completely vanished, leaving no trace. Ali and Nadia stood up, their legs trembling from exhaustion and pain. They looked at each other, needing no words, but both understood they had won, at least this time. Nadia began her journey of recovery after years of being haunted by the creature. She decided to leave town, seeking a peaceful place to start anew. Her physical wounds would heal, but the scars in her soul were not so easily mended. However, she knew she had accomplished what she thought, impossible facing the darkness and winning. Ali returned to the small diner, where she once thought she would live a peaceful life. But now, she knew that darkness was always present, lurking in the hidden corners of the world. She couldn't forget what had happened, but she wouldn't let fear control her. She decided to live on, stronger, and always ready if the darkness returned. That night, the wind still howled through the forest, carrying a cold and ambiguous feeling. But amidst the darkness, there was a light small but enduring, like the hope of two survivors after the terrifying battle. The flames had died, but their light remained in their minds, a reminder that even in the deepest darkness, humans can still triumph. The cold wind swept through the cracks of the small diner, carrying the breath of an endless night. Ali sat alone at the old table, her eyes gazing distantly out the window. Darkness enveloped everything, with only the faint light from the street lamp a few meters away remaining. But in that light, Ali found no peace. Instead, she felt an emptiness, an indelible haunting. In the days following the battle with the supernatural creature, Ali tried to return to normal life. She kept the diner open, served familiar customers, and tried to keep herself busy. But every night, when the space became silent, she heard the wind howling through the forest, the sound exactly like the night the creature appeared. Sometimes, she felt as if something was watching her, an invisible gaze, cold and full of hatred. Nadia, after years of being haunted, finally found peace. She decided to stay with Ali's family, where she felt warmth and safety she had long lost. Every day, Nadia spent time tending to the small garden behind the diner, planting vibrant flowers as a way to dispel the darkness in her soul. Though the physical wounds had healed, she knew the scars in her mind would remain forever. However, she didn't let them control her. Nadia learned to live with the pain, and bit by bit, she found herself again. Ali and Nadia often sat together on quiet evenings, recounting the story they had lived through. They talked not only about fear, but also about courage, the very thing that helped them stand against the supernatural creature. Ali realized that it was Nadia's kindness and determination that saved her, and she knew she had done the same for Nadia. They weren't heroes, but they had triumphed, not by strength, but by faith and resilience. The lesson both learned from the battle wasn't just about confronting darkness, but also about how humans overcome their greatest fears. Ali understood that darkness didn't only exist in the hidden corners of the world, but also within each person's mind. But it was kindness, courage, and belief in the light that helped her and Nadia overcome everything. Those seemingly small things became the most powerful weapons against anything, whether supernatural creatures or invisible fears. That night, Ali sat by the window, looking out at the garden where Nadia was tending to the flowers. She felt an unusual peace, even though darkness still surrounded her. Ali knew that life would never be completely normal again, but she also knew she had changed. She was no longer the weak girl she once was, but someone who had learned to face fear and found strength within herself. Outside, the wind still howled through the trees, carrying the breath of darkness. But amidst that darkness, there was light, small but enduring, like the kindness and courage of the two survivors. And that light had become the greatest lesson. Even in the darkest moments, humans can still find hope and victory.